Thank you. All right, so 9.6 is our last day in here on chapter 9 for notes. And please do bring charged Chromebooks the rest of the week. I might have something that I want you to do on it. For sure, Friday, you're going to be doing a benchmark test just so we have some data to compare in our department. So for sure, you're going to have something on Friday. All right, so 9.6, you are given graphs and you get to write the equation. Instead of given the equation, draw the graph. Here's the graph, write an equation. And so the graphs of sine and cosine functions are called sinusoids, even though it's cosine or sine. And I'm going to give you some steps and how to go about this. So first of all, there's 4 steps that I'm going to list. Number 1, find the midline. And the midline is your max plus your min divided by 2, and it'll be y equals that. So you get it by finding max plus min divided by 2. Your second step is to choose whether it's sine or cosine and determine if there's a phase shift. There may or may not be a phase shift. And the third is to find the amplitude. And amplitude is max minus the min divided by 2. And that, when you do max minus min divided by 2, it always comes out positive. And so then you have to decide if A is positive or if A is negative. Because when you put an equation, it's not always necessarily positive. And then fourthly, you need to find the period. And you need to find B. You'll calculate B, actually. And the period is going to be 2 times the difference in x values between consecutive max and min. The period's we're gonna find it by looking at, find a max and a min, look at the x values, subtract them, absolute value of their difference, and double it. And I'll talk about that. And that'll be how we get the period from the graph. All right, so it says write a function for the sinusoid. That doesn't mean that they are all sine graphs, or that would be your best choice. Sinusoids are both cosine and sines. So step number 1 is the midline. And for the midline, it is your max plus your min divided by 2. And in this case, it's just y equals 0. There, it's equally above and below. There is no shift up or down. So the midline is just your x-axis. And then you are going to look at the y-axis. And how is the graph intersecting the y-axis? And in this case, it is intersecting at the maximum, and that is a cosine graph. Cosine starts on the y-axis at the maximum. And that's when A is positive. So this is going to be a cosine graph. And since it starts at the maximum, there is no phase shift. Third, you're going to find the amplitude by taking max minus the min and dividing by 2, which it happens to be 3. And because it's starting on the y-axis at the maximum and then starts to go down, that's your normal cosine where a is positive. So a is positive, therefore a is 3. And step 4, you're going to find the period. And this is where you take consecutive max and mins. So you're starting at this max, you travel to the very first min. Those are consecutive. That's what we mean by consecutive. And you find the horizontal distance between those, which is your change in x. But that isn't a full period. To get a full period, you would have to end up all the way back here. So when you take max and min consecutive and you subtract, that's only half of your period, so double that value. So your period is going to be 2 times the 1 minus the 0, and so the period is 2. And then you have that B is, actually that's not what I wanted to start with. The period normally you find by taking 2 pi divided by B. And we just said from the graph the period is 2. Multiply by B. Divide by 2. And B is pi. Now, property of proportions, thinking of this as a proportion, you can just switch these. It's a property of proportions. Mathematically, it becomes B is 2 pi divided by the period. I mean, that's what we got right here. Oh, actually, that's what we got right here. But anyways, so you can just go right to that shortened version if you want. Or you can start with this so you don't have to memorize the new formula. It's up to you. But if you just take 2 pi divided by the period from the graph, you will get your value for B. And then we plug it in. And it is going to be, don't forget the y equals, so it's a function. Your A value is 3. We chose cosine. There's no shift right or left or up or down. And so it's just bx inside, so it's pi x. All right, so example 2. Start with the midline. It is your max plus your min divided by 2, which is 1. So the midline is at y equals 1. And so it's a good idea to dash that in as the midline. And second, we want to determine if it's sine or cosine. And you want to look on the y-axis and how is the graph crossing at the y-axis. And the graph is crossing at the midline. It's not at the maximum or the minimum, but when it's at that midline value, and then thereafter it starts by going up and down and back up, that's a sine graph where A is positive. So it's starting on the y-axis at the midline. It starts by going up. It's a sine curve, and A is positive. And there is no phase shift. And then we get the amplitude by max minus the min divided by 2. And you get 3. And we talked about A is positive because it starts from the midline going up as you go to the right. And then we're going to get the period and consecutive max and min. Consecutive max and min. Find the horizontal distance between them. And that's the distance for half the period. You have to double it. So you're going to take 2 times 3 pi fourths minus pi fourths. Just 2 pi fourths doubled is 4 pi fourths, and the period is pi. And you can calculate B by 2 pi divided by the length of the period. So it's 2 pi divided by pi, which is 2. So B is 2. All right, and so my equation, don't forget the y equals. A is a positive 3. We chose sine. There is no shift right or left, so it's just a bx, which is 2x. And I'd probably put that in parentheses. And then it was shifted up 1 just so that it's clear that the 1 is outside. All right, and then this last one. First of all, the midline is your max plus your min divided by 2, and it's at negative 1. And then you need to look at the y-axis and see how the function crosses it. But it's not crossing the y-axis at its max or at its min or at the midline. That means there's a phase shift. And you have a couple of options. There's more than one correct answer. So when I'm looking at this, I want to find the closest place to the right or left where the function crosses either at the center midline or the max or the min. So I want to think to the left or to the right, where is the closest place where this crosses at the midline or at the max or at the min? And there are 2 choices. Right here, 1 box to the right, it is starting at the midline, and as you go to the right from there, it's going up, back down, and back up. It's a sine graph where A is positive. So that distance to the right would be my phase shift. It's 1 box, and it's half a pi halves, it's pi fourths. So I can think of it as a sine graph with a phase shift to the right of pi fourths, which is what I'm going to do. But you could also see that it hits a minimum to the left pi fourths, same distance, but it's shifted to the left. But if it's starting at the minimum, that would be a cosine curve, and it's a reflected cosine curve where a is negative. So you can either do cosine or sine. It is also true that I could go all the way to 3 pi fourths, to the maximum. But that's further to shift it, so I prefer to go with the ones that are the closest to the y-axis. I'm going to treat this as sine. And you are going right pi fourths. And that also creates a to be positive, which means, hopefully one less chance to make an error when I go to write it. And then your amplitude, it is max minus the min divided by 2. So it is going to be 1 minus the negative 3 divided by 2, which is 2. And the way I see it, a is positive, so a is 2. And then we have the period. And we are going to look at consecutive max and min. In between there, what is the horizontal distance? So subtract the x values, but that's only half a period, so double it. Comes out to 2 pi, which is your normal period, and if you know that, b is just 1. But the calculation for b is 2 pi divided by the period. So it's 2 pi divided by 2 pi, and it is 1. b is 1. And then you write the equation. Y is equal to 2, I chose sine. B is 1, so there's just a 1 x minus pi fourths because I'm going to the right pi fourths. And I am down 1. All right, you have a couple of U-tries. Give you a little bit of time. If you finish them up while we're still waiting for other people to finish them, get out your book and start your homework. There's not a ton of homework, but do a good job on it. And your quiz is Thursday, no calculation.